Hey everyone, I'm Sophia with Awaken Catholic, and this is Awaken the Saint. Today, we're looking at a saint whose ministry life was documented throughout the New Testament, and in fact has 2 books in the Bible. Timothy was the son of a Gentile and Jew. It wasn't until he stumbled upon his lifetime friend and fellow apostle Paul that Timothy became a baptized Christian. On fire with his new Christian faith, he set out with Paul and Barnabas across Asia Minor to bring the good news to anyone who would listen. Their first stop, Macedonia. After some time of preaching together, the group began to divide and conquer in the name of Christ. Paul eventually left for Athens, while Timothy and Barnabas stayed in Thessalonica. The hope was that Timothy would be able to judge the acceptance of faith among the Thessalonians. He'd make sure that their ministry efforts were actually understood by those they preached to and not just become surface-level ideas to be quickly forgotten. Eventually, the gang met back up in Corinth, and they continued their ministry for many years together. After many letters and correspondences, Timothy then dropped off in the Acts of the Apostles. Not because he packed his bags and decided he had enough of the nomadic life, but because he would go on to become the first bishop of Ephesus in the year 64. Eventually, Paul was arrested, and it would be a matter of time before he was martyred in the faith. He sent for Timothy to say farewell to his friend who had traveled far and wide for the sake of the Gospels. It wouldn't be long before Bishop Timothy would join his friend and companion in the martyr's death. He was stoned in the year 97 after trying to preach against the celebration for the goddess Diana in Ephesus. Throughout the entirety of his ministry life, St. Timothy was known to suffer from some sort of stomach ailment, but this didn't slow him down from preaching with his companions, nor did his reserved and introverted personality. You're probably sick of hearing this by now, but as we all know, God doesn't call the qualified, He qualifies the called. He works through our shortcomings and shows us how those don't necessarily limit us to what we can do. In a public address from Pope Benedict XVI in 2006, he emphasized just how alive for the mission St. Timothy was. He said, "Indeed, the apostle entrusted Timothy with important missions and saw him almost as an alter ego, as is evident from his great praise of him in his letter to the Philippians. I have no one like him who will be genuinely anxious for your welfare." St. Timothy cared deeply for those he ministered to. They weren't just a number to be added to the church, but an individual soul who needed them to know that Christ came to die for them. Those of us in any type of ministry should do the same. But Sophia, easier said than done. Our pew numbers are down, and it doesn't look so good to have an empty church or ministry event. I know, I get it. I work in parish life, but when we're on fire for the individuals having an intimate relationship with God, instead of simply growing our numbers with watered-down messages, it'll reflect in our ministry, and our love for our brothers and sisters will actually be what encourages them to discover Christ. St. Timothy, pray for us.